8:58 at night. For what? As soon as I gained a bit of focus. I'm just going to talk about this again. Because it's good that I have a digital legacy here. Even if it doesn't go anywhere and nobody sees it. Say, like, I died next week. Suddenly this video is really special. I tried to call Morrisville police again to talk to Baxter. Because after what happened last year, Baxter, good luck finding a cop that knows accountability and can apologize for his actions. But Baxter kind of made it seem like he felt a little bad about what happened. But when I called them, they had an attitude. They played telephone. When they realized it was me, they said, "He's not here." And I heard laughing in the background. So just to reiterate, when I got to Morrisville, I was looking for a forever home. I was running around looking for a community that I felt I would want to be a part of before I really buckled down, got a job, and worked hard to get land. And the point of the land was really only to get John Michael out. Because he had nowhere, and he was never going to get an apartment. He was getting worse. He was getting much worse. So I was going to buy land. I don't think my cousin works a job. But I know John Michael would sit at his computer and make music hours a day. And that's all he did. And I know that my cousin Jesse sits and animates all day. And all he does is think about art. So I took it upon myself, even though they'd never really done anything for me. John Michael never did anything for me at all. Through him, I was able to learn self-love and self-care because I saw him as an extension of myself, because our circumstances were very similar. We both were wearing the same Ireland shirt when we met each other. But when I got to Morrisville, if you remember, I was getting like 1,000 views per video. So I was feeling good. I felt like I had kind of conquered the last month and I was ready for the next one. The content was pretty good. If you go back to before I was trespassed from the bank, things were going pretty good. So I get to Morrisville and I had no luck. Something's running around out there. Every time I went to Morrisville, the police were really hostile. Just to remind everybody, I was eating McDonald's in the McDonald's parking lot, and Sergeant Ron Audette ripped my car door open, accused me of dealing drugs, put his hand on my steering wheel, leaned in, told me I'm not welcome in town, basically. Slammed my car door, which my side mirror had already bent. Somebody had already smacked my side mirror off, and I had fixed it, but it broke again. And then the next year, coincidentally, Sergeant Audette and Officer Lamb would drive by me while I'm sitting at the food shelf lot, eating my McDonald's on my phone, waiting for the gym to die down so I would feel better going in alone. Healing traumas and trying to get my mind right so I could focus and innovate and create things and work on music and just kind of work with God to find a better way to reorient my life. And they would play chicken where they'd speed into the lot 60 miles an hour, try to slam into my car, and then at the very last second they would swerve and they would stare at me out the window. Really dirty looks. Or they'd spit out at my car. So I left and found a place out of town that I could sit at. And then one day, I think it was Baxter, found me out there, and even though it clearly said that I could park there, because it was a trail entrance, they tried to tell me I couldn't, and they tried to do a bunch of stuff. Audette showed up, and finally Baxter looked at the sign and realized that he was wrong, so they left. And then the next year was 2024 when I got there. And then I got permission from a supervisor at the bank to stay there overnight as long as I left by 5 a.m. I remember feeling like I came into alignment. I felt really good that night, and I know that usually when I feel that good and that blessed, there's always something that happens. So immediately, the most insecure, whiny, bratty cop pulls up, the one with the most issues. Like, Audette's got serious issues, but I'm talking about issues that deal with, like, I don't know, he just had a spoiled brat vibe. So he shows up and demands my ID and demands my name, and I'm like, I'm just not going to give it to you, man. And he's like, it makes my job easier. Well, I kind of know my rights here. I'm not committing a crime. He said, well, you're at a closed business after hours. And I said, well, I have permission to be here. If you want to come back in 2 hours when the woman gets here, she'll tell you. You know, there's plenty of other things he could have been doing. Instead, he superseded the person that gave me permission and called somebody far away that's not involved and sort of coerced a trespass for me. And then after that, they followed me around all the time. They had loud ceramic brakes that whenever I was nearby, they would squeal on the brakes next to me. If I walked to a store, they would go in the store. If I went to McDonald's, they would sit in the McDonald's lot and stare at me through the window. They would follow me all the way around town. I went to the library, lay down at the library on a Sunday. A bunch of old people called me names and laughed at me, laying on the ground, charging my phone at the library on a Sunday. So I was like, I guess I'll just move into the graveyard because I can get Wi-Fi still there. So another old person called the cops on me, and the cops showed up and demanded my ID, and I said, I haven't really committed a crime, man, and I'm sorry. So he sped off, threw a hissy fit, yelled at me about my ice cream being on the picnic table. Took off, and I have that on some of that on recording. And then he called as many people as he could to issue another trespass just because I was sitting there on a Sunday on my phone getting the Wi-Fi. And I thought that because people seemed bothered by my presence at the library, I just moved into a place where less people would see me. And they issued more trespasses around town, and one time Audette showed up and got in my face. My hair was down like this. He couldn't see who I was. His crotch was like this against my, like, not pressing, but like right there, and he stood there saying absolutely nothing at all. After beaming all three lights and the high beams at me, stomping over my notebook, and then did that. And then as soon as I lifted my hair back and he saw that I was a dude, he completely stepped back and his whole thing changed. His whole demeanor changed. Then he saw that I was recording, so then he took another step back because he realized what he was doing. He knew the whole time what he was doing was wrong. So I tried to be polite. I could tell he had some serious issues. I think I offered him a cigarette. Because that's the only thing I had to offer. I was like, maybe he smokes, he'll take a cigarette. Because I had nice American Spirit blacks. So it was the same thing he did before, but he was on camera, so he was polite. But he wasn't polite. He was implying I should leave town. And the way he said it was like every single heroin addict I've ever met. The way that all the heroin addicts talk that have these severe masculinity issues. The real, like, you know, like Ryan Brady was the same way. These people that are addicted to drugs, but they have these serious masculinity issues and they're on a high horse for some reason. And they're almost always domestic violence and sexual abuse. Like every time I've ever met people that talk like that, they're in trouble for domestic violence and sexual abuse of women. So of course, that kind of makes sense why his crotch was in my face when my long hair was down, and then when he saw I wasn't a woman, he stepped back. So I had nowhere to charge my devices, and I had nowhere to set up shop. So I asked around, I asked everybody, I was like, where's the place that I'm allowed to be? And they said, go to the rail trail behind MSI. So I went there, and then, if you remember, I had a tent, but I didn't have tent stakes. I didn't have stakes on my tent, so I was tying it to a branch, and I was like curled up, sleeping in it with just one blanket. And we had a cold front coming where it was going to be between, like, they said 5 degrees and 10 degrees. Thanks, man. What's your Marissa the lizard? The lizard, are you an alien? I'm talking about that last year I became a victim of police brutality. And I was just talking about the crazy, sick stuff that they did to me. The lizard people did. I had a cop that, because I have long hair. When my hair was in front of my eyes, he got up and stood like this while I'm sat down crisscross like this. He put his fucking crotch in my face, and then when he saw that I was a guy, he backtracked, and then when I pulled out my camera to record him, he stepped back, but he was still barking at me. But because there was a cold front, I was living in a fucking tent with no stakes, so it was tied to a tree, and I was curled up in a ball there, trying to get someone to hire me, because I wanted to travel all the way up that trail, another like 60 miles to get to the town I wanted to go to. I didn't want to stay in that town, but I had money coming the next day. There was a cold front that was gonna kill me. I didn't have anything. If it was gonna drop to 5 degrees and I had nowhere to go, I would have frozen to death. So I went to Aubuchon's and said, hey, I'm gonna take this and I'll pay you back in a couple days. So of course they charged me and trespassed me, which it was fine. I was like, I'll just pay you in 2 days. But instead what happened is the next day, they showed up at the tent completely silently until they got right near me, and then they started stomping really loud on the ground. They went and hid behind a tree, and they told me that the electric company wanted all the homeless people off the trail. And I said, that's fine, but I don't like your tone. I don't like how weird you made this whole interaction seem. I don't like how you're treating me here. I don't like the way you're talking to me. I have no problem leaving. Just go obviously you're here for everyone, right? So go talk to the other homeless people. Go do your rounds. And then at the end of it, if I'm still here, you can keep bothering me. But I will just get up and move. I just have PTSD from other police violence. And I just am not comfortable with it. You guys are triggering me. And then they kept going. They got worse. They started like literally just stomping on the ground like toddlers and just screaming at me to leave the tent. And then they kept trying to call my name, and I'm like, you don't know who I am. You're treating a stranger like this, and you haven't said why you're here. So eventually, they issued me a citation for something, and I was like, you don't know who I am. You're issuing a citation to someone you don't know. You haven't identified me. Stop talking to me like that. Because the whole point, I wasn't going to just tell them because then they would do it. But the whole point is that if they just changed their approach to stop being so violent and antagonistic, you know, like it's some weird kind of rapey game for them where they have to go in like this, and charge, and I'm gonna get you, you know, and they come at you like they're trying to like emotionally dominate you, like they're on drugs or something. So like a pack of hungry wolves, and I'm like, the whole point is if they just let that shit go and just came up and said, hey Casey, we got a citation for you and there's a warrant, sorry, but there is, so let's try to make it work. We know you're not doing anything bad out here, just unfortunate circumstance. Because I missed court because my lawyer did not text me. I've been trying to get a hold of him for a year. Yeah, it really does. Eventually, they walk out. They pretend to leave, and then I can hear them hiding behind a tree. So I'm just like, you're not gonna get me, man. Just leave me alone, and I'll leave. And then one of them comes back, goes, Casey, and then starts talking to me. And I didn't even answer him. I answered somebody else. But because they yelled Casey, and I just continued talking, they took that as that was the able to identify me. So then they walked up, asked about it, told me I had a warrant. I didn't acknowledge that. Like I said something that it wouldn't say it was me or not. So I didn't have $50. So they opened the tent, and I'm not sure if they were allowed to do it, but they opened the tent and immediately just maced me. So they just sprayed mace in my face. So I just I sat there. I said, mace didn't work, what are you gonna do next? So they grabbed me by my legs and they ripped me out of the tent. I did hurt my head on the pallets. Sometimes I say I cut my head open, sometimes I say I didn't. I was bleeding. There was blood. The nurse acknowledged it when he wiped it off. But when they got me there, the mace was in my eyes, it was in my nose, and I had breathed it through my nose, and it was now in my throat. Somehow it also got around the whole side, so it was like some of it was in my mouth, and some of it was in my, the nurse said it was caked into my ear completely. Like the whole thing was covered in burning, like all the way into my eardrum, which really hurt. So I had just quit cigarettes. I told you about the cold front. I had a cold. I was already kind of spitting up the mucus all day. Not to make it dramatic, but I had a stuffy nose. I couldn't breathe out of my nose anyway. So now with the mace, whatever, and I didn't fight back. I just had my arms here. I don't know, like I was not fighting them. I just went limp. So it would be easy to move my arms. But instead they both issued a painful wrist lock, is what the report says. They gave me a painful wrist lock for no reason. So they inflicted pain on me without any action taken for that to be necessary. Cuffed me, and then they left me there, and then I realized I wasn't able to breathe, and I started begging them, please get my water from the tent, please, I cannot breathe, please. And then you're like, sure. And then I told them exactly where the water was. It was right next to my grape soda, just right there. Instead, you can see, like any normal person would be able to see it. It was just right there. It's a small, like 2x6 or 2x7 tent. It barely fit me, so it's not getting lost anywhere. Instead, he's like searching the crevices. He's ripping all my blankets out from the other side, looking for drugs, which there weren't any because I don't do any drugs. So I can't breathe, and he's searching my tent. He grabs the grape soda and goes, "Wouldn't want to accidentally pour this in your eyes." Then after a few minutes, he gets the water. And then I can't breathe, I can't hear, I can't see. And they fucking held the water up at crotch level like it was a dick. And if I wanted to live, I had to get it all over my face and in my nose and into my lungs. So eventually when I could breathe, I still couldn't see and couldn't hear, but I could breathe better. But it kept like it was up in my nose, and it would keep going down, and I would get back to like coughing up and choking. So like 4 or 5 times as they're trying to get me, they also wouldn't tell me if they called an ambulance or not, because I couldn't hear if they did. I couldn't hear if they called an ambulance, and I knew that they were already playing these games, and I was dying. So I was like, "Did you call an ambulance?" And they wouldn't tell me at all. They were playing a game to like keep me worried that I was gonna die for fun. So they walked me through the forest, and every time I couldn't breathe and my throat was closing and shutting down, I like went on the ground, back on my knees, and I made them pour it back so I could breathe. And I remember I cried in the video. I had it on live. I recorded it. It's on my channel. I cried because I imagined what my dad must think. Like I wanted my dad to be proud of me. But instead he saw that like I couldn't fight the police. I would go to jail. So he watched his son get molested live. He watched his son get brutalized and molested. So I cried. And then when I got to the ambulance, my arm was in this weird position. It really hurt. And at this point, like this side of my arm, like this side of my body's gotten so much damage, I can't tell if I have permanent damage or not from it. But one Officer Lamb was loading me onto the ambulance, and then Audette goes, "Wait," and he yanks my arm back, and it really hurt my wrist, and it hurt my arm, and it just felt to me, because one cop was pulling me up. So it just felt really antagonistic. It felt like that was his way of like really trying to get me. So I said, "Fuck you," and then in that "fuck you" there was spit coming up. So I spit, and I went, "Pfft." But the intention wasn't to spit on him. And if he was pulling me and he was behind me, the only way he got in front of me was by holding my arm back like this. So he was already holding my arm back, and somehow he took a step forward, if that's the case. But I spit, and when I spit, I felt like he was still over here. I don't think I hit him at all, but I think he heard the spit and already assumed that I was spitting on him because I had just yelled, "Fuck you." So he tackles me into the ambulance and starts choking me, full on, hand on my throat, choking me out. And I'm going, "Your world is over," while he's choking me. And then they load me onto the ambulance. The nurse identifies that they put the cuffs way too tight. They put the cuffs so tight my wrist started bleeding. So I'm on the ambulance, and I'm saying, like, because I still don't think I hit him with the spit, but I can think fast enough to understand maybe I hit him, but either way, he heard the spit and he tackled me into the ambulance and started choking me out. So he goes, "No, your world's over." And then we're in the ambulance with the nurse. The nurse says, "He put his cuffs really tight." I talked to the officer about how now the body cam footage is mandatory because force was used. And then we leave. We get to the hospital. In the hospital, the nurse, it took him like a half hour to dig all the pepper spray out of my ear and out of my nose, eyes, and mouth. And I showed him the blood. I showed him all the blood. And the other officer won't come in. His camera's pointed at everything. It's not like he was hiding the camera for privacy reasons. He was still like looking around at everything. Camera was pointed at me, whatever, over at the nurse's station, and he's just talking shit about me, making things up about me. Just like lying to these nurses to try to get them in on the joke that they're hurting the guy because it's okay to hurt the guy. Finally, a cop from a different department, the sheriff's office, shows up, and he adjusts my cuffs so that the body cam doesn't show how tight, that the cuffs were so tight I bled. Because there was just so much evidence that they were malicious and violent and really unprofessional in what they did because they wanted to hurt me. So the guy from the other department comes in and he tells me to my face, yeah, my footage won't be added to Discovery. He just reveals what he's doing. And then he lies again and says that he personally had to wipe off Sergeant Audette's face. In the body cam report, or in the, not the body cam report, but in the police report, it's completely misspelled. The cop fucking, the entire report is misspelled. He just blatantly lies 5 or 6 times. It seems like he's drunk. It reads like he's drunk and like lost his mind. He does admit he used the painful wrist lock, but they completely made up how they identified me. And they both admitted they'd never met me before, so they had no real way to identify me. In the report, it says that they warned them that I might be an indigenous person from the res and that I might know my rights. Like they implied to use extreme caution because I might be a law scholar. So they literally say in the report, don't do anything illegal. He might know our game. And there's a bunch of other stuff I made a live about. I'll have to look at again. So that's one cop saying he personally had to wipe off Audette's face. In the police report, Audette says that the guy who was in the ambulance with me, the guy who was up inside the ambulance the entire time, tending to me, was somehow out there and had to wipe off Audette's neck. And he said that it hit his neck, and it said this little bit of spit that I spit out ruined his pants and his entire uniform and his body cam. He said that my spit destroyed his body cam. When I saw him Audette hand lam his body cam so that he could do something behind the scenes, which was tamper with his clothes to try to charge me for it. So they're still, I think, trying to charge me like $700 or something for an entire uniform and gun and equipment. Because somehow that little bit of spit that somehow hit his neck, even though I spit over here and he was over here. And he said the wrong name was the guy that helped him. And then the sheriff said that the sheriff was the one that helped him, not anyone on the ambulance. Then, when they bring me to the jail cell, he just tells me to my face, if I was indigenous, they would have done a lot worse to me, was his words. If I was a Native American, they would have done a lot worse. If I was of another race, they would have done much worse to me. So, I go to jail, and jail was horrible. But I got a lot of wins. I had everybody laughing because when the cops would come in, there was just a cop, I could tell he'd never done anything like real in his life. He went right into being a corrections officer. He gelled his hair. He had like the same suburban preteen whatever. And we had all the cops like scared, nervous, insecure, because we were just pointing out that they're fat and bald. And I was like, and even just standing up, they were out of breath. And then they didn't give me a ride out of the jail. I had to walk, I think like 4 miles. And when you get arrested, they take your shoes. And the cops took my boots and everything before I could get there anyway. They wouldn't let me go with my boots anyway. So I was in the flip-flops and the socks, and I walked 4 miles. And then I had to take like a 2-day long, 18-hour total bus ride through the mountains to get back. And then I got back, I found out that they had taken a bunch of my stuff. So I had to go to the police station and I asked for my stuff. I walked up to the audette and I was like, hey man, can I get my stuff back? And he goes, what stuff? I think he was convinced I had drugs when I didn't. Best case scenario. Worst case, he was talking about the spiritual power he stole from me in ritual because he's a Freemason. But either way, another cop was there and he was nice to me. Or better. I told the other cop, like, every town I go to, as soon as I leave, everyone gets judged. The last town that I went to that treated me like shit got completely wiped out by a hurricane the next day. So every town I go to, the next time I go through the town, everybody tells me, after you left, it got so much worse, and we realized we didn't know how bad it could get. And I said, everyone but you guys have apologized so far, in some way or another. So he was like, oh, okay. So I said, I'll see you in church, man. And I left. Got some of my stuff back, got my phone back, and my boots, some of my stuff. And then 4 days later, I think, I'm back at my tent, and then there's the same stomping and completely silent footsteps. Instead of just announcing your presence and being kind of respectful and normal, they get really up close to the tent and sneaky, like trying to keep me as scared as possible, trying to induce fear and intimidation. And then I don't answer, because I'm like, I'm not going to play your game. If you're not going to talk, I'm not going to talk. So then they start grabbing me through the tent. If I was a woman, they would have full on grabbed my breasts, grabbed my legs, rubbing their fucking hand on my legs. It's weird. The tent is on a cliffside, because it's just as far off the property as I can go. It's on the cliffside. They're lifted on the cliffside. There's broken glass, rusty metal, cans, tons of dangerous stuff, probably needles. And they start lifting the tent to literally push me off and roll me down this cliffside. They try to lift me off the cliff to see if I'll jolt and move. Then they open the tent to look in, and I'm holding my breath, and then they lie and say, I saw him breathing. So Audette goes, if you don't answer us, I'm going to do what I did to you last time. So he threatened to mace me, rip me out of the tent, put me in torture cuffs, molest me, try to break my wrist, tackle me into the ambulance, choke me out, go back and illegally search my tent, try to plant things that doesn't work, and steal my shit. And then make up a lie about it. So I plead my Fifth Amendment. And then a woman is there suddenly, and she goes, if you don't answer my questions, I'm going to haul you away for a long time. Do you know what day of the week it is? And I said, I don't think any questions you ask are a good assessment of my mental health, and you should be able to extrapolate by my vernacular in such a hostile environment that I am of a sound mind. That's verbatim, exactly what I said, exactly how I said it. Except I had a deeper voice because I was smoking cigarettes and I was in the woods 24/7. I hadn't been degraded to this. I still had some semblance of internal presence and focus. So This fat white cunt is obviously taken aback. And she's like, well, in 3 hours, I'm going to come back when I find a way to get you. And I was like, she said, I don't like what you said on the internet about white people. Because I said, I'm so hurt by how white America treats me. And I have a list of like 100 different names of people just in the past 6 months that have been unusually cruel, hostile, retarded, and prejudiced towards me just because I don't want to pay rent. If I could, I wish I could kill him. And it would be so easy to. Which is because that night, or the day before, someone had said pretty much the exact same thing about homeless people. Every day on Facebook in Vermont, there's at least, I would say, 100 people across Vermont, at least, every single day, just talking shit about homeless people, and then about like 500 to 1,000 other people join in, and they're all just going back and forth, riling each other up about how it's okay to kill them. They're bragging about when they walk down the street and they instigate a guy, and then when he's just like, what the fuck, leave me alone, and then they sick their dog on them, and they bragged about how the cops let him go. They talk about like one guy walked to the door and asked for money, and the guy sicked his dog on him and permanently dismembered his face. They're bragging about how homeless people go missing, and one guy says, yeah, he went in my wood chipper. They just say it publicly. People have said publicly that they walked downtown in Brattleboro, grabbed an immigrant, kidnapped him, and now the guy's missing. And they just posted it on Facebook, and the police don't give a fuck. The guys are posting that they're murdering homeless people, and the police don't care. So I put on my YouTube, because I'm smart and I like to play mind games because it's all I could do, and I was so traumatized that I was in this war against white America. I knew what was going to happen. I posted, I hate, and I posted the real reasons, legitimate concerns, not like I hate homeless people. It was like, why do they treat me like this? Why do they treat me so bad? Don't they know how easy it would be to kill them? And I have a list of 100 people. Knowing that on Facebook every day they see people talking about what they're doing to homeless people, and they're doing it to homeless people. So I just took the word homeless and replaced it with white. Because I wanted proof, and I was hoping that God would lead them there for this huge realization. I was hoping that I would just get the right words at the right time to pierce through and make them realize their own reflection. That they were mad at me for something they've been doing for their entire life. And maybe get a chance to convert that sick, bad code in them and bring them back, which would immediately flood them with the Holy Spirit. And they would realize, like, what the fuck was I doing? I'm sorry, Casey. And I'd be like, I'm chosen for this life because I'm the only one capable of help healing this part of you in this specific scenario, which nobody else will ever put you into this scenario. I'm a rare experience, so I'm trying to do my best here to save as many people as I can while I'm trying to make my music and figure things out and help my family and enjoy my life. So instead, she just shut down, fat bitch, and she just can't speak. So then Audette steps in. He's like, I'm going to arrest you for litter. I'm going to charge you for littering. And I was like, what? You're going to get me with something I didn't do? He was like, you did do it. And I was like, you have proof? There's trash everywhere. You're going to talk shit about this little pile? So and I'm like, how the fuck do you guys sleep at night? And he was like, with my eyes closed. And I said, yeah, and a belly full of beer, and your wife is fantasizing about me, men like me, if you even have one. And then he left, immediately walks away. And then he stayed there for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to get me, and then eventually he sped off really quickly, angry. And then after that, they followed me every single day for months. Every single day, as soon as I left my tent to go to McDonald's, they would be following me the whole way. While I'm in McDonald's getting my food, they would be sitting outside blaring the high beams at me. While I'm taking my food on my bike and I'm riding back, they're following me the whole way. While I'm sitting there on my phone watching Smosh, try not to laugh videos, and eating my food, they have their high beams and their light blaring right in my eyes. I go live on YouTube and I record them, and then they take off, and I realize it wasn't just them. There was another cop car around the block, and they both take off. They were just sitting there, hoping to catch me with drugs or something. They were confused how I make money as a homeless man. And it was of the generosity of a nice Christian family in West Virginia helping me through this. Hold on, I do have a place to, they're kicking me out of the cabin because some rich people from New Jersey have bought the property. So the like corporation that owns it wants me to leave. So I said, like, yeah, I'll just get I'll move my tent off the property. I found another place where it's nobody's there. There's no there's no damage to the property gonna happen. There's no, like, nobody owns the property. It's just one of those things you sit and leave and you can't build anything on it. So, like, it's cool. The only way that people would have a problem with it is if they're angsty, fat pieces of garbage with no life. You know what I'm saying? If I'm there, it's just one of those places, if I'm there, there's going to be no crime because I'll just report it. If there's a guy shooting up and dying right there, I'll carry him back out into the road and call the police. But nobody will go there because it's hard to get there. You know what I'm saying? So I left a note and said that I was away from the cabin. I don't have to leave yet. They gave me a week. But I'm building a new place. And then moving my stuff. Yeah, where I was earlier. I don't know if I'm going to stay there, but I found a new area. And then I was wondering where all the robins went, because as soon as the cops showed up at the property, the robins never came back. So I followed the sound of the birds deep into the woods, and I looked on Parcel Viewer to find properties that aren't owned by anyone, like blank properties, where there's no owner. And I found like a tiny little place, and I found all the property lines, and I found a cool place. It's chill. And I don't plan on being there long. I have to move back to Morrisville because I have court. So it's just a temporary. And then I said on the note that, I have to get my birth certificate and my social security card. And then I can work on finding work. And then I can pay for a storage unit. And then I can get the bulk of my stuff out. And I also put in the note, this current property owner is selling the property and wants me gone. The new property owners, because you can't build anything there, they're just going to be sitting on it, and I'm sure anybody would like free labor. The place is a dump. I'm sure nobody wants to spend the money it's going to cost to fix that place up yet. So I don't see them having a problem with me making their life easier if I want to. And they might even get excited at the idea about like the cabin and the dream I had, and the me drawing the cabin months before I found it, and how I've been making music videos in my mind of the cabin before I knew it existed. Like, I know what that's going to turn into because I've been making music videos around that cabin years before I found this cabin. I literally saw it from a third-person perspective, and I saw this huge scene for my music videos for the album I made in 2021. And I didn't find that, and I was just thinking I was going to 3D animate it, but then I found the literal place 3 years later. And then maybe I'll play them some songs and just show them that the birds come when I sing, and I'm sure they'll be like, that's fine. He's a nice guy, there's no crime. Only if they have this, like, power hungriness, they would kick me out. But either way, it's no big deal. The point was, okay, cops, and then they threatened me with violence, and then they followed me around, and then this, and then that, and then eventually the winter came around. There was just a couple instances of them following me into grocery stores, following me into the dollar store, just still like wasting taxpayer dollars to follow me around all day. And then it was like negative 40 degrees. I'm at Price Chopper picking up some food. I'm going to McDonald's to charge my phone, and I'm buying food, and I'm going to live stream that night. I noticed, and I even recorded it. I was like, he's following me. They're not hiding. They're not smart enough to be conspicuous or inconspicuous. I know what they're doing. They're trying to intimidate me, whatever. They're staging an attack. I can see it in spirit. I know what they're doing. I can literally see it floating in the ether with God, that they're staging an attack on my consciousness to try to embed me with fear so that I can't feel this anymore. They're staging an attack on my light. I know what's going to happen that night. And of course, like 6 or 7 minutes later, I'm in McDonald's. 4 cops show up. 2 cops block this entrance. 2 cops block that entrance. They close the restaurant down like there's a bomb. And they send a mental health worker in. And the guy's got this like eerie smile, like this stupid condescending tone and eerie smile. And he sits there and bullshits me for 50 minutes. Trying to get any sense of like any slip that I might have a mental illness. And I'm just focused and there and running him in circles, and he's getting embarrassed and he's getting angry and he's getting antagonistic. He's doubling down, just trying to emotionally hit me. He's trying to dominate me so that he can gaslight me and try to turn me into anxious, and then they can get in with a disorderly conduct or something, or show that I have mental illness so that they can rip me out of town and send me hundreds of miles away. They're literally trying to force their way into physically removing me and driving me 100 miles away and just throwing me back. For what? Because I'm walking around at night and I'm paying a lot of money to the community. I'm making lives better for many people, but they don't like that my hair is long and I don't pay rent. I'm bringing them money that they would otherwise not get. You know what I'm saying? And I don't cause any problems. So, yeah. If you were there, Joy, I was talking about all the times that they ripped me out, molested me, beat me, tried to break my limbs, choked me out, lied, and threw me in jail. And like I've been thrown out of cars before, and I've had knees on my neck, and then I'm like, why? And then they Google a picture of a young man, and they find a guy that looks kind of like me, and they're like, well, you fit a description. I've had that happen. I've been maced and left in jail for 3 days, and they didn't have running water or blanket, so I had the mace in my eyes for 3 days. Cops have just broken into my house before and sneezed in my face, and I got really sick. Because I drove a Dodge Magnum, and I lived in Section 8, so they assumed I was dealing heroin. Back in the day. And I've seen 7 cops beat the fuck out of my father illegally. They said he didn't use his blinker when he did, and then they tried to reach in the car and rip the keys out. So my dad was like, what the fuck? That's illegal. So he tries to escape, hopefully to get to a place with a camera, just try to get in the way from the cops to protect us. And then all of a sudden there's 7 cops there in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. It was a staged attack. And it was the first sleepover I ever had with him. So shit like that. But yeah, eventually like after 50 minutes, I was like, whatever. And I showed him, I played the recording back of him lying. Once he just started blatantly lying on the phone to somebody to try to get permission to kidnap me, I just played him back and I made it seem like I had been recording the whole time. So he realized he was fucked. Because he had broken like probably 3 or 4 different protocols. And I think he did commit a crime that night. He would have been fired for a couple things. So he got up and left. And then the cops were like trying to show off that they knew my name. They're like, hi, Casey O'Brien. And I was like, so it was -40. I took my coat off and I walked away in a t-shirt to show them like, I live out here. I'm not affected by the cold anymore. I've mastered it. I did get very sick later, but back then it was fine. Like after -40 for like 3 weeks straight, that gets to you. But right now it's 40, I think it's 40 degrees. And It's going to be next week. It's going to get down to 30s. I'm on top of a mountain. You won't be able to see it where I'm at because it's dark. But I'm on top of a mountain. The elevation's like 2,500, I think. And then there 4 miles down the mountain, there's a tiny little valley town. I'm in Vermont. I don't know where you're at. I'm in central Vermont. On a mountain. So they did that. They didn't really bother me after. In between those moments, like back in the fall last year, they did go to where my tent was. They drive onto the trail and they would sit there and beep 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 on the siren for half hour sometimes. And they would only stop when I started going live. I don't know if that's like a literal gang stalking thing where it wasn't a cop, it was somebody else with like a megaphone going boop 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 boop. I don't know what it was. I have no real way to describe it other than when I would meditate, I'd find peace and the crows would get really mad. When I survived the crow attack, then sirens would go off. When I survived the siren attack, then they would they would bring the siren all the way over to where I was, and they would slam on it until I lost that state of peace. It felt like I was in a simulation. It felt like spiritual warfare. They're just like right in your face, obvious spiritual warfare. And that went on for months, really trying to just whittle me down and then hurt me. So they did that for a long time. Eventually I got really sick. I think I had a 105 when I had gotten rest for a few days, and I was eventually I got into a motel and I had a 105. So I must have had like 107 more. Like I couldn't think, I couldn't really breathe well. I was hiding in a tractor supply wagon, and the wagon had like a mattress foam under it for insulation, and then I had a blanket over me, and then I had a tarp over that, and I had an extension cord that plugged into a little heater, and the heater, it was so cold the heater would break, so I had to like kind of edge it, I guess, just hitting the button to make the heat go for like 20 seconds and then letting it go, hitting the button again, letting it go for 20 seconds. Sometimes if I could get the angle right with the ventilation, it would get enough cold air and warm air together that whatever was inside wouldn't break and it wouldn't overheat. So I was able to let it go like for 30 minutes at a time, but I would just be in this half resting state, half awake, to make sure I didn't freeze to death. And I did that for a couple days, and then I survived. But then the homeless community action program that deals with people in homelessness, instead of being like, you must be fucking freezing, come inside. We deal with homeless people, like just come in and hang out, we'll give you food, warm up. Instead they called the cops to remove me from the property. The homeless community action program that I was signed up with and I visited every day called the cops to arrest me and trespass me because I was laying there like half alive. You know what I'm saying? So cops showed up and kicked me, spit at me. I have that on recording. The way they were looking at me and stomping on the ground and spitting just over and over again, stomping and spitting like they were on drugs. Like they had completely lost their mind. And I was like, look at the camera the way you're looking at me. Look at the camera the way you're looking at me. And I told them, like, do you want to run a test to see how you should talk to homeless people? But they don't care. They were so proud that they were going to remove me from the property so I would die. They were so excited that I was about to die. And then I walked in and immediately just pushed past them and found the one worker with common sense who is an Aquarius and pushed everything else back immediately because it's all bullshit, demonic bullshit. And I just walked in and hung out with her for a couple hours, and then I got into the motel program. And I could see the cops were fucking writhing and angry that they lost. They didn't get to kill me. But he did tell me he said to my face, I'm not welcome in town. Which is discrimination. And I could sue him. I have witnesses. But no lawyer in Vermont is willing to put their safety at risk. So no, they're all pussies. Vermont is the second, it's the smallest, the only state, the state, like the one state, I think that's smaller than Vermont is Rhode Island. But Rhode Island's like 5 times as populated. So Vermont is the smallest state with the smallest population. It's the second smallest state in the country, other than Wyoming, which is just buffaloes on a hill. Yerp. And then, you know what? You heard me? So, heavens, Ronald. Oh my God, Ronnie. I get into the motel program and I'm there for 3 days. I open a window. The manager of the motel program comes in, assaults me. She hits me, pushes me out of the way, slams the window closed, tells me it's against the rules. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was against the rules, my fault. She sees that I have a ton of tissues sitting in the trash, and she says, because you have tissues in your trash, we're kicking you out. It clearly says in the rules that the trash may not exceed the limit of the bucket. And I'm like, okay, sorry, I have a bottle of V8 that's in there pushing the trash up. If I just move that to the recycling, it's tissue, so I can just push the tissues down. And she's like, nope, you wouldn't have challenged me on it if you were a good person. And the fat bitch storms away. So I was kicked out with 105-degree fever, and I was forced to brave the wilderness again. So on the rail trail, there's a foot of snow. I grab my wagon. It's negative 40 degrees, negative 60 wind chill. I have gloves on, but I'm sick and I can't think. I grab my wagon, as much of my stuff as I can, and I drag it 11 miles on the rail trail, stopping for it like a few times to catch my breath and just stand there and like warm myself up. I dragged it 11 miles to Johnson, where I said, I'm going to Johnson. I wrote a song about it. I set up at a public park, and that was probably the best part of the journey. I loved being in Johnson. There was nobody there. There's obviously, anywhere in Vermont, there's inbred fat white pieces of shit that are prejudiced, and they think that their inbred genetics make them superior somehow. You know what I'm saying? Caught up in the suburban delusion and struggling to make their ends meet because they're basically homeless themselves. So I plugged into this park, and the park is really nice. I loved it there. And I walk around at night smoking cigarettes, and sometimes I got Chinese food thanks to Heather, and I had an outlet, so I rested there for a month. And then eventually we had a cold chill where it was going down to negative 80, I think. The numbers might be wrong, but it was like this extreme cold that nobody's going to survive. And some guy shows up and he laughs at me, goes in and turns off the electricity knowing I'm going to die. Knowing he's going to kill me, a guy shows up and shuts off the outlet. So I'm like freezing to death, literally freezing to death. I carry my wagon and I walk over to the food shelf, and I'm like, fuck it. I don't care what people think. I'm going to set up and I'm going to be here until I'm healthy again. And then once I'm healthy, I'm going to the gas station and getting a job. And I applied everywhere. Nobody called me back. I stayed there as long as I could. I was hoping to like let it warm up just a little bit. It's like going into January now. I spent my birthday and Christmas out there. No, it was right after my birthday and Christmas. So it was already January. I was like, as soon as February rolls around, eventually they're going to call me back. I'm going to get food stamps and I'm going to eat. I'm hearing shit out in the woods. Let me move this real quick. Eventually, I was looking up a more permanent place where I was going to get pallets, and I was going to go further up the trail and find a place that isn't owned by anybody but the government, and then set up shop for the winter with the plan to clean it afterwards and make it look better than I found it. And just looking to find places I can apply to and find work and make connections in the community, go to the library, meet people. I just needed to heal because I had a constant fever over 100. And God, I hate that sound. My birthday is December 11th. Yeah, it is cold. I like it though. I've been homeless since I was 14. But I wasn't fully outside until I was 18. I was couch surfing in foster homes and institutions and shelters. But I graduated, and I lived a pretty good life. Eventually, the select board told the police that they had to remove me, and the police offered to take me down to a different police department, offered to take me down to Montpelier. I just saw an alien. I don't know if that was a forest spirit or an alien, but now there's a really cold chill next to me. And out of the corner of my eye, I just saw something. It looked to be like 4 foot tall. And now it's really cold here now, around the side. And I did hear those noises before. So it was weird. The plan was I was going to go further up and I was going to get a job at the ski resort. And as soon as I had committed and I was really excited for that, that's when the cop showed up and tried to take me 80 miles in the other direction. And I caved and was like, sure, I'm not going to turn down a hotel, a stay at the motel program. So instead of going up to Cambridge, I went back. And then, like, the second night that I was there, my little brother froze to death outside. He hit his head on the cement and froze to death at 7 a.m. And the entire town in my hometown drove by him on their way to work. Because they assumed he was homeless. So they left him to die. He was probably crawling. He was probably crawling and begging for help, and no one helped him. So I went down for his funeral and came back. And the manager just took the manager at the motel, everybody I talked to said that he will randomly show up and scream at them. Like, he was a guy that needed to dominate people. He'd force the door open and he would berate people and force them to move things around their room. Like, pick up that pencil and move it over to the other side. And he would literally say that, or you're gonna freeze. I will take your voucher away and you will freeze. I will cancel your voucher and you will freeze. So I eventually got sick of it and I stood up to him, and then I went downstairs and told him, my fucking brother froze to death. The funeral I just went to, he froze to death because he kept threatening that I was going to freeze to death and he'd kick me out. He knew I was sick, and he'd torture me, man, for fun. He'd make me take all my things and walk. It's a pretty big hotel. It's long. So I'd walk about half the length of a football field, carrying it down 2 flights of stairs, and carry all my stuff all the way to the lobby just to sit there for 4 hours, and then he'd make me put it back. because I had stood up to him the night before, so that was my punishment. He was mad at me because I went to church. Every time I went to church and I came back with the people that would go to church, he would get really mad at me. I think it's because I don't know, extrapolate what you can from that. Why was he so mad that I felt happy coming back from church? Maybe he thought I was getting high, I don't know. He thought that I was smoking in my room, and I was smoking in my room, but so was literally everybody else. And my smoke didn't have a smell. I was smoking natural tobacco. Everyone else was smoking crack. He wasn't mad about the crack, probably because he is getting money from them. They're paying him to run their business out of their rooms. They're probably doing the crack. But eventually he kicked me out. And then I came back here. And then tons of people tried to run me off the road. Everybody was mean again. But then I was everybody was really sick. Just constant attacks on my spirit. Like strangers would come up and start screaming at me, trying to order me around. And I'm just sitting there like working on trying to figure out live streaming. And then a commander, eh? Yeah. And then I made it through the winter here. People try to run, like people have tried to hit me with the car a lot. The biggest notable thing the two real notable things there's three. The first one is that people twisted the brakes off my bike, and this mountaintop is huge. So there's a McDonald's up here at the top, but then there's a huge quarter-mile steep hill. And I think they knew that I liked to send it down that hill, because I liked, I was living dangerously. It was bound to happen. But they twisted the brakes off. Like, so you can twist the brakes on the bike, and then the brakes don't work. So I was good. They said, I don't know how fast I was going, but they said between 45 and 60. Must have been. And then I fell 6-foot drop off the road. And I got knocked unconscious. And then when I woke up, I couldn't move. I thought I was paralyzed. I could scream, so I'm screaming for help. And then I was in a church. It's a church parking lot. And the people at the church with their windows down this summer they stopped at the intersection right next to where I was. They heard me screaming and begging, and they left. Like 5 or 6 cars full of people left. So I got up and I crawled and I limped, and then I got to a phone charger, and then I called an ambulance. I got in and said I couldn't feel the left side of my body, and I was knocked unconscious. And the guy said, he's complaining that his side hurts. And they gave me fucking Tylenol and kicked me back out onto the street, and I couldn't move. So some nice old ladies brought me back to the church, and I charged my stuff, and I rested for a couple days. And then I limped back up to here, and then I couldn't move my body for like a week straight. And then finally I got up, and I couldn't stay at the cabin, so I moved into town. And I just kind of slept on the ground because that was the only way that my arm was good. I have hairline fractures on my left side, and I pulled a bunch of muscles, and I had a major concussion. And I had people on the YouTube the whole time just saying, get the fuck over it and get a job. So then that forced me to go to live in this field behind the high school. And then at the end of it, the first day of school, I was packing up my things to leave, and I cleaned the whole trail system for them. And then I was sleeping in my tent because I was like, as soon as school ends and I'm not bothering anybody, I'll leave with my stuff. And then a group of freshmen took this log, and it's a 10-foot cliff above my tent. They climbed to the top of the cliff, and they dropped this 15 to 20 pounds, but it was like this big. I don't know, you can see it's bigger than the width of my body. And they tossed it over, trying to crush my head with it. And they missed, and they said, oh, I missed. And then I got out of the tent and I chased them through the soccer field. And the principal said she punished them, but they didn't get punished. And their kids are telling everyone they killed me. The freshman kids are going around the school and they told people for a week that they had killed me until everyone was like, I saw him fucking playing guitar at Cumbies. What are you talking about? But then I got to volunteer at the 33rd annual Celtic Music Festival, the New England Celtic Music Fest. And I got to hear Irish music for the first time in my life, and it was really cool. I sat on the top row in the reserve section when this band came on, and when they started like really shredding, it was a bunch of old people just peacefully listening to it. But I took my boot and I stomped on the ceiling, bum 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 bum, to the jig, and then all the old people started stomping to the jig, and they were like clapping their hands, and it was really cool. And instead of walking around crazy, I think it's a simulation. So instead of like walking around the simulation, like trying to communicate with everybody and just being crazy, there was a couple nice kids that were there that were also volunteering. So I hung out with them the whole time. And it was really nice. I think the girl kind of liked me too much, and she was 14. So I was like, fuck. Everybody saw the guy with the crazy hair that they think is on drugs hanging out with the 14-year-old alone for 8 hours. And then she showed up in fucking booty shorts and a tank top the next day. And I'm trying to work. I'm like, this is my first opportunity to work, and now this 14-year-old won't leave me alone. So I was like, fuck, come on, man. Please. Please. Just one day. Give me one day, God. Stop. And then, it went fine. She's really cool. But every time I walk around, I'm like, I guess I'm the camp counselor today. Taking care of these kids. Like, trying to make sure, like, don't think I'm a creep, please. But that girl is in foster care. And she showed me the scar on her leg that her previous foster mother got mad she didn't do the dishes right out in the country, like deep in the sticks. And she fucking walked out and just stabbed her in the leg with a knife. And then kicked her out. And that girl's nice. She doesn't mouth off to people. She's kind of autistic. There's no way she deserved to be stabbed in the leg. And she showed me a bunch of other like wounds that she suffered in that foster home. And then the next foster home she's at now, they fucking, when they're mad at her, they lock her out. They take away her EpiPen. She needs, like, she's got this chronic degenerative disease. So, like, half the time she has to be in a wheelchair. And she's probably going to, like, probably by, like, 21, she's going to be permanently in a wheelchair. And she'll probably be dead by 30. And sometimes her foster parents just, like, take her shit from her. Which sucks. That's tough. So sometimes I'll ask her, like, if I see her, like, hey, do you need food? Are you okay? And she doesn't like to talk to me now because she's convinced that I'm, like, trying to report it to DCF. Because she's scared that she doesn't know where, she wants to be in that foster home because her brother's there. And she'll be there till she's 18. And I'm not trying to take her away from DCF. I'm not trying to take her away from it if she doesn't want to. I'm just like, she said they give her a can of SpaghettiOs at night. So I'm like, I have food stamps. I can just Walmart deliver you to your friend Eric's house. Because she has another family that she kind of lives with. Her friend Eric and stuff. I was like, I'll just give it to Eric. I know the mom at the post office. But I don't want to be seen as a creep. So I don't message her or anything. 2, I'm like, I don't want to overstep. And 3, it's just like, whatever. I know God is giving me these opportunities. I'm always trying to give it 110% and like leave things better than I find them. But I don't know how to handle that situation. And it was like, you never know with kids. My cousin, coincidentally, her name is Alex. And my cousin Alex got in a lot of trouble because he was at a party. And apparently he was drunk and 2 girls went down on him And then later it was figured out that those 2 girls were minors, and they were at the party and didn't tell anybody they were minors. Or whatever happened, I don't know. But the thing is like, with that stuff, people can just lie. Your mom committed you when I was 14. I'm sorry. I didn't know, but now I know. I thought committed. For a second I thought you meant she molested you. But I'm sorry to hear that. My mom has mental illness. My mom's a super narcissist. Very weird set of mental illnesses. My dad's got, I think he's just got PTSD, and that resulted in alcoholism and drug abuse, but I don't know the extent of his drug abuse. But I had a bad home life. It wasn't violent or abusive, it was just weird. I didn't have I was isolated completely, and the people I was around weren't functioning. So it wasn't great. I'm just trying to save money, and I don't have a way to get a birth certificate. So I'm trying to find income of some kind. I have a GoFundMe, but my subscribers aren't really... I mean, there's one guy that sends me $5 here and there, and then I have a nice Christian family that's been sort of funding this journey the whole time. They used to send me $100 a week, and that would go to McDonald's because there was nowhere else I could go. So like a McDonald's meal once a day is like $7. So I'd end up spending $70 a week getting McDonald's once a day. And then the rest would go to like buying things off Marketplace, clothes, tents, supplies, chargers, portable batteries. Eventually I started smoking cigarettes, so that extra like $30 would go to 2 packs of cigarettes a week, which sucked. But it is what it is. I don't share things often. I wish I could help my brother, but I'm on the thin path too. Yeah. The best thing you can do is lead by example. And then set up a life. You know, if you don't have a life worth living, there's no use inviting other people into it. That's what, when I give dating advice to people, that's what I say is like, if you want to date and have like a sex life, make sure you're living a life another person would want to enter before you even think about stuff like that. Or else you're just making things worse for both of you. And I do think we're in spiritual war. I do think we're in the end times. I think fasting, sunlight, probiotics, self-care, rest, isolation in nature is essential. Then multivitamins, probiotics, protein, a workout routine, getting a daily morning ritual, getting a journal and then having periods of meditation where you really think about your issues and having this desire to do better. I think that everyone should adopt that, and if they don't, I think that they're probably going to live on hell on earth, and they're probably going to be, like, their whole life will be a waste, and they'll probably be possessed by an artificial intelligence in the next 10 years, 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish, if I could get all my subscribers just to write that down and put it on their fridge and just, like, make a little bit of effort every day to get closer to that, I think their whole life will be exponentially better and very quickly. Like, I think God will just come out of the woodworks and just bless them abundantly. But you have to deserve it first. And I don't deserve it, but I try. When I get food stamps on the first of the month, I buy a bunch of junk food and I stuff my face and get fat and get upset. I went from cigarettes to loons, and now I went from loons to these vapes that don't have all the chemicals in them. This is pretty much healed. Like, I'm not in chronic pain anymore. It's just chronic discomfort. So I'm sure if I start stretching, I'm able now to use the tools to like rake and shovel and hammer and saw. So I could probably find work at like a construction, as like a apprentice to like a laborer of some kind. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it. It's hard. I'm just gonna say it. I see aliens. I think I was abducted last night. And I'm not just bullshitting. Like I don't say that. I swear to God, I really felt like I was sleep paralysis, and then I felt myself fall off the bed, and then I felt myself get carried out of the tent, and I felt myself get carried into the woods, and I thought it was a bear. I thought a bear like grabbed my neck and paralyzed me and I couldn't feel anything. But then as soon as I left the cabin, I suddenly snapped back and I was just in my tent again. And no time had passed at all. So I think I was abducted. Because for the past week, I've been seeing stuff. Like at night, I hear things running around and I'll suddenly see like a golden eagle outside my tent. And then the next day, a golden eagle shows up outside. Sometimes I see giant spiders. That's scary. There was a bunch of footsteps that as soon as I looked out into the forest, it stopped. I've been seeing giant praying mantises, or like insectoids. I've been seeing cat people. I've been seeing these weird bugs in spirit, and I've been seeing dead people, like legitimate decrepit corpses that attack me. And I don't know why. It's not like I'm delusional thinking and hallucinating. It's just like you hear those footsteps. It's just like randomly I'll get this huge wave of energy over me like a blanket. And then I'll start to be introduced to those things. And I sleep out there. And I'm gonna have to set up my days so that I sleep during the day. Like I'm gonna have to go to bed at sunrise and then sleep through the day and then wake up at like 4 o'clock. So sleep from like 6 to 4. And then from 4 to 6 do a bunch of work, cut down trees and build gather dead trees and build a little structure just to move my set up the tent and stuff, and then slowly work to get my stuff out of the cabin and wait for the new owners. Because I can't afford a storage unit is like $45. Yeah. I know the sound of falling leaves and falling branches because it's cold, and then there's a sound of obviously things running. I've been outside long enough. I know what foxes sound like. I know what deer sound like. I know what bear sounds like. I know what raccoon sounds like. Sometimes, and that wasn't tonight, but sometimes there are things that are running on 2 legs because I know how I sound when I run on 2 legs. Sometimes there are things that sprint around. Sometimes especially when the full moon is up, reality starts to shift really crazily and I get cold chills. Like I just saw a giant light being just now just like pop out right in front of me. And then I get extremely cold chills. Why is there a kayak here? There's no bear up here, but there used to be deer, but it's hunting season, so they don't come around anymore. They come around in the spring. There used to be turkeys, but they don't come until the winter. Now there's a raccoon. I think it got displaced from wherever it was before, and it's looking for a new place. There are foxes. I wish I had a video camera. Yeah, there's no mountain lions here. There's only like a dozen left, they said, in Vermont. They've been killed. Pretty much all of them have been gone. They killed them all. I'm going to take a piss. Pardon my... Yeah, have a good night. If you know any rich people, donate to my GoFundMe. I'm trying to get a car. Then I can DoorDash, and I can leave and go find eco villages and make a YouTube series. And they're gone. Alright, goodbye guys.